I would like to welcome in someone who knew both of them so well. If we're going to be here on this day, I'm so thrilled to be joined by so many people who knew Kobe at his best, and that was often when he was with his little girls. We now have NBA and WNBA skills coach, co-founder of the Through the Lens skills training app with Carmelo Anthony, and coach to Gianna Bryant on Team Mamba. Alex Bazzell joins the jump. Thanks so much for stopping by, Alex. I'm really thrilled that you were able to spend time with us today because Gigi and the girls from Team Mamba, it was amazing watching them together. And we were just hearing from Zebo how Kobe wanted you guys to be running them through, skills drills, yoga sessions, the full boat of training. What was it like to coach Gigi Bryant knowing you had the ultimate athlete dad there working with you with her?
Well, you know what? It was an interesting relationship that we formed. Like most parents, and I've worked with younger players in the past, of course. Most parents, they try to live through their children. And with Kobe, it was so unique because you knew he had all the knowledge and experience in the world that he could pass on to Gigi and her teammates, but he felt this need to have this divide of, at some point, he just wanted to be dad, and he wanted to have another voice in there. And, for him to trust me with that, that certainly meant a lot to me.
And of course, we spend so much time talking about Kobe because he lived his life in public. But Gigi was starting to, and we were starting to see what those of you who knew her so well know about her, how fierce she was, how determined she was, how funny and sweet she was. Can you tell us a little bit more about Gigi on the day-to-day? Because the potential that was lost on that day a year ago, it's gaping.
Yeah, obviously, who she was as a player, she was able to do things that, quite honestly, a lot of NBA players couldn't do. Like, she could shoot a fadeaway over her left shoulder as a righty, which, to give you an idea, if I start working with an NBA player, it usually takes them 3 to 4 weeks before it's even respectable. So for her to have that at that young of an age, she had so much of her dad in her, and quite honestly, a lot of Vanessa too. She was so fierce that even Kobe had to try to get her to back off a little bit.
Wait, excuse me? Are you serious? Come on.
I know. Yeah, and that was a sight to behold. So, she was as competitive as ever. But as you mentioned, when she was off the court, she was such a sweet girl, and you could just tell how much her teammates loved her.
And we know what Kobe's style was as a player. What about when he was talking to Gianna about what he wanted, or what she would say back to him? What were they like in terms of that competitiveness? Because I know Vanessa has called Gigi kind of Kobe's little clone in that way.
Yeah, well, Kobe was so great about, he wanted her to find her own way. He didn't always want to give her the answers. And he wanted to just pique her curiosity. And that's what he did with all the girls on the team. So to give him that leeway, it honestly changed the way I thought about how I approach training younger athletes. And, he talked about it in a scenario of, think about a young kid that's learning a new language, how much quicker they can pick stuff up than maybe someone your age. And that's how he went about training. And he was like, let's just throw everything at them, see what they can absorb, and see what they naturally want to kind of pick up on their own. So just the way he went about it was so unique in that standpoint, because when you accomplish so much at whatever it is, you generally want to force your ideas or your way of what made you successful onto the next generation. And he kind of let everyone find their own way, and he kind of plugged along and gave answers when he could.
And I know you have been working toward equality in hoops yourself with your own projects. And I did want to ask you kind of Kobe's impact on the women's game and women's basketball. I've talked to several WNBA players who have said they think Gigi could have ended up being the greatest women's basketball player to come. And that includes someone like Diana Taurasi, who, of course, the GOAT. Just what they thought she might be able to do both within the game and for the game. And that started with Kobe, who recognized the importance of the WNBA and the modeling that gave children about what they could do. How did you see all of that and have incorporated that into your projects as you go forward too?
Well, with any young person or professional or anyone trying to find their way, the two biggest things is competitiveness and passion. And she had that at the highest level. There's a lot of very talented people. There's a lot of skilled players. But if you don't want to constantly improve, if you don't aren't looking for ways to kind of reach that next level, you're always going to get capped out. And that was never an issue with Gigi. So, what her potential could have been, it really came down to her. And that's probably why so many people thought she had a chance to be one of the greatest players to probably ever play women's basketball and basketball in general. And with Kobe and I, we shared I think how we got along so well is we both had very similar interests, not only in the men's game, but the women's game just as much. So, what we've been trying to do, and specifically with Through the Lens, and obviously my fiance is also a WNBA player.
Yep.
And has accomplished a lot in her young career so far, is we've always shared that interest and feeling like if we can continue to help do our part to help elevate the women's game, then there's really something there that the last couple of years you've seen the momentum that it's gained, and Kobe was certainly helping that. But I think what he'd be most proud of is how many other players have stepped up to the plate, specifically in the last year.
Well, Alex Bazzell, thank you so much for joining us. That perspective on Kobe, on Gigi. Being the coach of Gigi Bryant, working with Kobe Bryant, that is a tall order. And the fact that you guys had such a fantastic relationship really speaks to the time you were able to spend. So thank you for spending time with us today.